Good evening. Welcome to the West Seneca School Board. We have a special meeting this evening to discuss a couple of things that have just come up. So we hope everybody is enjoying the back to school, at least for half of the students, or maybe a little less than half because of the virtual kids. So what we hear is good. Things are going well in the school, and Mr. Bystrader will talk about that a little bit later. But we're glad things are off to a good start. Let's do the pledge. Mrs. Delbo, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Mr. Bystrader, would you like to do your superintendent report?
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Bears. Welcome, everyone. Glad to see everybody again. I guess I just wanted to maybe start off by commenting how great it is to have kids back in the buildings. To myself and a lot of other administrators, we were able to get around to every building yesterday, and we saw just nothing but enthusiasm from everybody that was in the buildings. Students, staff, everybody's just really excited to have the kids back in session. It's kind of interesting, actually, people taking, pictures and stuff as the kids are going down the sidewalk. It's just a little colder than it usually is on the first day of in-person learning, but it really, I think things were going very smoothly. I also want to actually thank our families. I know our building principals worked very hard to develop procedures for pickup and drop-off, like arrival and dismissal, and I have to say that talking with our building principals, that parents were very respectful of a lot of the protocols put into place. Everybody was very calm and understood that, just kind of getting used to new protocols and procedures for operating within parking lots and things like that. So, overall, just a huge team effort, but I just thought a special shout out was due to our parents for all their work. And again, just seeing the enthusiasm from the kids, our teachers, secretarial staff, our administrators, very nice to see. So the other thing, I guess I'm going to pivot a little bit here and just talk a little bit about COVID-19 testing. So at our last board meeting, I did just update everybody and kind of let them know some of the procedures, and Mrs. Fowler kind of talked a little more granularly about how we were conducting testing. I will say the testing's going well. And I just wanted to communicate with our families and obviously with the board to let them know what you can expect from us on a weekly basis. So as we said, we're testing Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. On Fridays, now those are our randomized tests of people that we put in randomly into a system. And I will say too, we've gotten, since the last time we talked, I think we have another 800 consents for students. So that was good. We had a lot more students. That was probably within the past couple of weeks. But so we have a pretty good chunk to draw from, and that's not to say that you shouldn't still continue to fill out those forms. But anyway, so every Friday, what we're going to do, and we sent it out last Friday. I apologize, East Senior was left off the list, but there were no positive cases at East Senior. But we're going to send out communication that just indicates how many students were tested, students and staff, in each building, and then how many positive cases that we had. So that's a Friday communication, kind of a roundup. Throughout the week, though, if we have a positive case, and we're not allowed, as I've said in previous meetings, we're not allowed to disclose really student or staff. The health department is very strict on health privacy laws, and we basically say, we sent one out earlier this evening just to say that a member of a school community in whatever building it is has tested positive, and just know that we work with the health department on contact tracing efforts to determine anybody that might be in close or what they call proximate contact with an individual who's tested positive. But so the process itself, I feel, it'll work well for us, but, we have safety protocols in place. So that's where, wearing the mask, 6 feet of social distance, a lot of hand washing, hand sanitizing, and just taking other measures are really what's going to keep us all healthy and safe. So just to give you a little bit of an expectation. So, and we are sending out these emails to the entire district just for transparency purposes. So it's, even if it took place at one of our buildings, we just let everybody know, because you might have, kids at multiple buildings, and we just want to make sure that we don't miss anybody in our communications. So, I guess that's probably about it as far as the testing is concerned. We'll continue to keep everybody apprised of our process, and I just again want to just welcome all of our students back and thank all of our staff and all of our families for making it a smooth first couple of days. So, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, so can I have a motion to accept 2A, which is a resignation from our buildings and grounds, and 3A for the MOA for our nurses? Can I have a motion to accept those two?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Kwiatkowski, can I have a second? Mr. Siebert. Any discussion on those? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried 7-0. And did you want to do your?
Sure. Okay, so one of the, if anybody that's taken a look at the agenda tonight knows that there's a resolution on there for the board to be able to vote this evening on, well, it involves two different items, basically. We're looking to take the students and staff, so basically the entire program of Winchester Elementary, and move it to this building, Potters Road Elementary. The other is to take the fifth grade, essentially start, and these are both to take effect next year, for the beginning of next school year, but to have the fifth grade remain in the elementary schools on the east side of town. Our current configuration on the west side of town ends at fifth grade, and then the middle schools are 6th, 7th, and 8th. On the east side of town, the elementary schools end at fourth grade, and it's 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll go into some detail at a later, in a little while, about the rationale behind this, but what we're recommending is that Clinton Street Elementary and Northwood Elementary, the two east side schools, retain our fifth graders. So basically, we'd be changing the configurations of the middle schools and those two elementary schools. The middle schools would both be 6 through 8 buildings, and the elementary schools would all 5 of them would end at fifth grade. I mean, big picture, this is going to promote a greater level of consistency in our programming. So, but I will get into that a little bit further down the road here. But one of the larger items as well is to talk a little bit about the Winchester campus and the Potters Road campus and some of the rationale behind why it is that we're discussing this today. I do want to start off, there's a PowerPoint, I do want to start off just by saying that initially this conversation started just, because of an ongoing issue that we've had in terms of space over at Winchester Elementary. The building is physically smaller. There are fewer classrooms than at Potters Road, for instance, but the biggest issue is that the classrooms themselves are smaller. So really this comes down to nothing more than space, but each classroom is smaller. So I'm going to go through a PowerPoint that I've developed here. And I will also say, too, that our folks over there, our administrators, our secretarial staff, our custodians, our teachers, they work through whatever, all right? They're going to continue to support our students. They have supported our students no matter what, all right? This is, essentially us taking a look and saying, how can we enhance their ability to meet the needs of our students? So start off here. So we kind of have this configured from Winchester, and then we're going to talk a little bit about Potters in this PowerPoint. So if you look at, and I won't read the whole PowerPoint here, but essentially you're talking about the space being an issue here. So the average class sizes, you can see some statistics there. At Winchester, they range anywhere from 685 to 990 square feet, and there's 3 of them that are 900 plus square feet in the building. So when you see the comparison to Potters, you'll see there's a disparity there. So when you talk about the number of classrooms, all right, so we have a need, I will say, not just that, for the physical space within each classroom, but just the number of classrooms. It's very important that we have designated spaces for our interventionists and our special education teachers, our related service providers, to be able to work with kids. Or even just if a child's having a tough day and maybe needs a space to calm down, relax a little bit, which, happens. I mean, kids, they all have needs. Right now there's a lot of juggling and shuffling. And Mrs. Brady from Winchester will be able to sort of talk a little bit about some of these issues and maybe just provide a little bit of context. She's here with us this evening, but I'll call her up in a little bit. I'm just going to kind of give the overview here. But we have a lot of mandated services that we are required to provide, and unfortunately, in some cases, those services take place in a hallway or a locker room. The locker rooms at Winchester, and I'll get into this in a little bit, are not utilized for locker room purposes. They're utilized for office space, for working with kids, for like physical therapy and occupational therapy. They're also used for storage purposes as well. So, and again, Mrs. Brady can elaborate a little bit more on that. But just big picture, education has changed over the years. And there is a requirement, and not just our educational program, but education in general does require the models that are being used today, require a fair amount of small group intervention and pull-out, where you need to have a space to work with a few kids, or you're doing evaluations and you want to respect a child's privacy, and you don't want to be in a hallway working with that child. So, I mentioned the locker rooms. Right now, Winchester students for physical education class, they don't change because they don't have locker rooms that they can utilize for that. So they just don't get the full experience from a physical education standpoint either. And I've already kind of illustrated some of the concerns with the way that we have to use our locker rooms now. Another area, too, just to point out, is the outdoor space over here at Potters Road Elementary. Now, Winchester, it's an old playground, and it's quite near to the road. Potters Roads is only about 5 years old, maybe 6 years old. It's newer. There's quite a bit of green space out here, right behind me here, and it's a good playground. So that's getting into this here, essentially. So it's a picture of Potters Road Elementary out there, but basically taking a look at the space that we have here. Again, I can just tell you that, where we're at right now, we feel as though this building, which is currently being utilized for district offices and being utilized by Erie One BOCES, we lease some space to them here. We feel that it would be adequate, more than adequate for Winchester to be able to move completely over here, and we'd be able to spread out and give our interventionists and our teachers and our students the appropriate space that they need to be able to operate in a way that's going to be effectively meet their needs. So just getting into some of the whys, you're looking at larger classroom sizes. Now, I'd mentioned before, Winchester's classroom sizes range anywhere from 685 square feet to 990 square feet, with 3 classrooms at 900 plus. Potters Road is 751 to 1226 square feet, and there's 15 classrooms with 900 plus square feet. The overall square footage between the two buildings, the Winchester is 49, just under 50,000 square feet, and Potters is just under 70,000 square feet. So there's a substantial difference in the amount of space in the buildings. Winchester has 22 classrooms, Potter has 32. And that's on paper. I mean, they've honestly repurposed some of the spaces, like the locker rooms, to be able to use them for classroom space. So again, getting into the greater number of classrooms, there's just so many different things that take place that we need to be able to have individual work, whether it's a reading specialist working with kids, or having a conference room, or having a dedicated space to meet with parents, and not having our teachers having to juggle and try to find places to meet with kids. Overall, the educational program, as I said, really has evolved. There's quite a number of different interventionists and related service providers that support our students that really do need that individualized space. So, I already mentioned the locker rooms, but kids will be able to have the full phys ed experience and be able to change afterward. And just looking at the outdoor space, it's not to say that Winchester doesn't have some green space. They have quite a bit of it right behind the school there. Potters also offers quite a bit of green space as well as a nice playground. And the parking lot in front there, it's a large parking lot, and not quite so close to the road as well. So, big picture, we feel this is going to most effectively meet the needs of our students. We feel we have this opportunity right now to be able to, take this next step here to give our students this extra space that they need here. And again, I keep saying the word space, but it really doesn't come down to anything more than that. And I can get into maybe some other aspects of this overall plan in a little bit. But before I do that, I'd like to ask Ms. Brady to come up and maybe just illustrate some of the things I was talking about with some context, though.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me here tonight. I wanted to start out by saying Winchester is definitely a special building. I remember walking into it for the first time for my interview, and you can feel the charm when you walk in, right when you walk in the front door. It's a great building. However, when it comes down to the physical learning space, we have had some struggles over the past few years while I've been in there. And I'd like to share just some of those struggles with you. First, I'm going to refer to the classrooms, the insufficient number of classrooms with interventionists. Related services, they provide the interventions and accommodations outlined on students' IEPs. And for example, we have one room and it has 3 consultant teachers in it and 1 reading teacher. So if more than 2 groups are meeting at a time, the rest of the groups have to meet outside to accommodate the students' IEP requirements. And that happens a lot where they go outside into the hallway. Hallways have a high degree of distraction and do not provide the privacy and quiet area needed to properly teach students. In regards to the occupational therapy and physical therapy accommodations, we have one full-time occupational therapy that works out of the old girls' locker room. And we have physical therapist travelers that work in the conference room and in the hallways to meet the IEP accommodations. In addition, we have 1.5 reading teachers and a school psychologist that share a small space, approximately 250 square feet. So between those 3 staff members, they plan together, they plan when their sessions will be, and they utilize the conference room and the hallway to make sure that we get the evaluations done and therapies and meet their needs.
Ms. Brady, if I could just jump in on that too, that the fact that they're so restricted on their planning also has an impact on when they are able to get to some of these evaluations and services that they have to be able to provide and do. So that has a real impact. We have mandated timeframes in many cases that we have to, whether we're providing a service or providing an evaluation. So if they're not able to plan these things freely, that does have an impact and has legal ramifications as well, aside from, most importantly, just slowing down the educational process for a child.
And with that, some of the privacy we get concerned about because of FERPA, especially with the IEPs. Response to intervention is a mandate that requires the building teams to meet and discuss individual student concerns. These often relate to academic, behavioral, and social emotional needs of students. We have several students with diverse needs, including anxiety, trauma, sensory needs, for example, and they often need a place to regroup, de-escalate, and reset for a positive day. We do not have a space available to devote to these students' needs. During my time here at Winchester, we use the conference room when it's available or the social worker's office. These 2 spots are not always available, even when there is an immediate need. And then we need to move to my office or downside hallways or maybe into a classroom where the students are in lunch. The conference room is used right now for occupational therapy, physical therapy, testing accommodations, related services evaluations such as school psych evals, and parent meetings. So a quiet area would be something that's necessary and that's often requested when we have the RTI building meetings. I just want to emphasize that the Winchester staff is amazing and professional, as you all know, and always put the students first. So we will provide the interventions at any cost, but we will and have provided the accommodations in the building. More space would be able to just allow us to enhance the services that the students need.
Thank you, Ms. Brady. I appreciate it. Obviously, I think there's probably a need maybe for some discussion here, but there's another part of this resolution. I don't know if you'd like me to continue with that, or would you like to maybe discuss Winchester a little bit before we move on?
Does anybody have any questions for Mrs. Brady?
I do. I have a few. Okay, how many students do you currently have in the building if it was at full?
Approximately 390.
Okay, so right now, with your hybrid, you have approximately how many in the school each given day?
In
4 days.
each cohort, it's approximately 150 because
Okay.
about a quarter of the building is remote.
Okay, and then, do you have any special ed classes in your building?
Yes, we have.
611, 811,
We do
1211?
not have self-contained. We have consultant teachers who push into the classroom.
Okay, so they're integrated in, okay. And, okay, that's all for now. Thanks.
Anybody else?
The staff is fully behind this? Staff and teachers are fully behind this move?
I would say,
This isn't something we've had a big discussion with all of the staff about, to be quite honest with
The
you.
parents of the community are fully behind this move?
We
haven't
haven't,
talked with them either?
yeah, no, Ed, we haven't had a
Just
huge
checking.
discussion.
So if the building's over full, why did we make the decision to move kindergarten back into the building a couple of years ago?
I can speak to that. It was something that was listed as a high priority for, I know, our Board of Education and the community. I met with some of the PTA parents that said, what can we do to get our kindergarten back? So we did what we could to try to get it back into the building.
Okay. So but at that point, we were aware that there was an issue with the building being overcrowded, right?
At that point, and again, it doesn't just come down to overcrowding, it's the physical size of the classrooms.
I know the physical size of the classrooms. A lot of the stuff she listed was the overcrowding, that we don't have room for the out of classroom type stuff. So it's the physical size of the classrooms that's the issue, the building's been overcrowded for a long time. It goes back to when this board made the decision to close Potters, fill the building up with half the kids from Potters, and the building was crowded at that point. At that point, kindergarten was moved out. I don't know if that alleviated, you weren't there at that point, were you?
No.
You were there when kindergarten was gone, though. Was the building overcrowded at that point without kindergarten? I'm not talking about physical space of classrooms, I'm talking about overcrowded of the building. Did we have issues then too?
When
Are you talking about
Before
before
kindergarten
kindergarten
came
came back in?
When it comes to the IEP requirements and with the interventions needed through RTI, we gain additional staff. So since I have been there, we have gained 1.5 reading teachers based on the needs with the MAP assessments, DRAs, and state assessments, and an increase with a speech therapist,
Yeah.
in addition to more school
So it's
psychologists.
progressively gotten worse
So
the
it's-
last couple of years.
In my tenure there, we've gotten more staff, which means we need more room for therapies,
I
et
don't want to say
cetera.
worse, because I actually love the fact that we have those people there helping. I don't want to put that down, because I want to be clear, we're talking about two separate things here. We don't have room for the kids that, in the building overall, but the square footage of the classrooms you feel are too small to teach in. I don't agree with that part. I totally see where you're coming from on this part of it. And then the last thing I just want to point out before going any further, the picture of the playground wasn't real. The Potters playground is old. It's actually not 5 years old. And it's just such a sore subject to have brought it up. I totally wish you didn't. But the parents here raised money for a new playground, and that money was dispersed between Winchester and Allendale. Winchester bought swings with it. I don't know what Allendale did with theirs. 3 ad hoc pieces were installed here 5 years ago. They're not part of the actual playground. The actual playground is really old. I regret you bringing that up, because I think that's such a sore subject that I just want to get that out there.
Okay.
Okay.
Also, I don't know, as we're having this conversation, I've been receiving phone calls. I've also received phone calls from upset parents, and I was on the board when we closed this building, who are upset that you're reopening it for Winchester, but didn't consider them. Okay, so I don't know if anybody else has gotten any emails but I have been receiving. So you also have upset Potter Road parents too, who have to drive by the school to go to Allendale. Okay, now some of them will be coming here that were originally Potter Road that were moved to Winchester, but the ones that are going to Allendale, I guess, are now upset, so.
Yeah,
I'm just
and-
letting you know, I personally, and I'm gonna say it once, I wanted this to come out. I wanted the parents and the community that have been affected or will be affected to have part in this, to answer questions. I'm against having it now where maybe a handful of people might watch this and it's spreading. I've also heard, I know your next section is on 5th grade, I also heard from them. They're very upset because they found out when they read the agenda. So I'm just letting you know, the rollout, I think, is very poor. I think we should have went to the community and at least had them ask the questions, vent their concerns, and now we come down to this. I was very disappointed, Matt, when I walked in and seen this. When we had our meeting yesterday, I thought we were going to take a week or two, but that's just me personally. Go ahead.
This is the age of transparency and of involvement of parents. This is a very radical thing in the middle of a pandemic to close a school building. The kids are just adjusting, happily coming back to their school. The timing of this is really, really very, very poor. Not that Winchester can't change in the way it's used, but it needs parent input, it needs community input, and to just radically change a building when the kids have just thankfully gotten back to school is not a good timing. I would like to propose the formation of an investigative committee of staff and committee to study how we best can use our facilities to serve the needs of our students and taxpayers.
Community, I'm so sorry.
We need to have some transparency here. This is brought on very suddenly, and of course, no one likes to hear history, But my 4 children all went through Winchester when we had 700 kids in that building. Shock. I taught several years at Winchester School. I just do not understand this urgent need at this point. And I realize that we are going to have changes in the district. I know that. My grandchildren in another district go to a K-1 situation, and it works wonderfully. But that came as a result of a lot of investigation and a lot of parent input. And that building is used that way, and then they have like a 3-4 or whatever. But there are different ways to use buildings. But to abruptly close the doors of Winchester to our students, this is not the right time. We need a committee, and we need to be transparent. I'm ashamed of us.
Okay, and if I could just speak to this, to me, we're changing a whole group of kids to just a different physical structure that's bigger, that's newer, that will accommodate more of our support staff. And we're not breaking them up. When this school closed, we broke up kids. We sent them to different schools, and there was no community involvement in that, which was not good planning either. When they closed East Elementary, it was just abruptly closed, and those kids were scattered. What we're doing here is taking a whole school community, the whole staff, the whole administration, everybody, custodians and everybody, and just putting them in a different physical building. And this is one of the first steps that we're taking, because we do have a group of board members that have been meeting, and we're going to expand this, and we are looking at the whole district. How can we get equalization on each side of the town, east and west, to get everybody have an equitable, some schools are more crowded than others. What can we do? How can we change this configuration? And that's when we plan to have the community involvement. This, I guess, some of the board members felt we're just changing the physical building. We're not changing the school community. And so I guess we didn't feel we needed input from the community to do that, because we're not changing teachers, administration, we're not changing any of those things.
But you are changing
So-
that community. Very
But we're
much.
just
Because-
changing the place where they go to school.
Can I ask how many kids walk to school?
2.
Only 2 kids out of the whole
For
community?
cohort A's 2, but usually we have very minimal walkers because of Harlem Road.
Okay.
But there's a crossing guard, and they have the
Oh, yes.
ability to
We have a
walk
crossing
to
guard
school.
for 2 kids.
But there's only 2 students, at least in cohort A. In
That's
cohort
all,
B,
sorry.
it's up around the same time, amount.
Yeah, again, I put together 11 proposals the last time I served for 9 months on a committee looking to make changes like this in the district. Most of those proposals were completely ignored by the board and district at the time. So I know what it's like on both ends of this. And I'm disappointed that I just recently got involved in this, very disappointed. 2, I put 2 proposals together that closed Winchester. Everyone knows that the building could be closed. We could move those kids somewhere in the district. We could do something with it. The quickness of this situation is what bothers me. How quickly it came up, how quickly I found out about it, and how quickly we're doing it. And now it's last minute. It has to be done tonight. It has to be done. No changes, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This district constantly makes stupid decisions. And I'm going to say it's stupid decisions. Wouldn't have brought the kindergartner kids back over if it meant we were going to do the situation. I wasn't going to support closing Potters before if I know moving all the kids over to Potters was going to pack Winchester and cause a problem. We moved kids over to East L when we closed it. We moved 5th grade up, and now here we are bringing it back. I love the idea that, Matt, you're trying to fix these problems, but I think this is another situation where we're making a quick, rash move. And our committee, our SLICE committee, what if we decide we got to close Winchester completely in another 2 years? Then what? Now we've moved the kids here, and now we're moving them to other schools? Let's make these decisions. I mean, if we're going to close it,
Have a focus.
let's have a focus. I mean, we got problems at West Middle School being full. Let's focus on everything as a whole. Let's focus on redistricting, like Diane said, the committee's doing.
And there is going to be, this is
But-
the beginning of a process.
Yes, so
But
what
this did
happens
not-
if
So we
in that
don't have to
process,
keep-
we decide that Winchester needs to close?
This did not have the stakeholders involved in the decision. and
But
that's
either
my
did
problem.
closing this building or East L.
Yes, I know.
But this is just changing the
East South-
physical building.
Yes,
It's
so what
not
I'm asking
changing
is, what
the
if I-
kids, it's not changing the administration, it's not changing teachers. We're not moving anything around, we're just moving this whole glut of kids.
Okay, and we're
to this
moving
building.
administration out of here.
But I think BOCES has been
Right?
very happy in
I,
this
I
building.
don't know
Yes.
what's gonna happen,
Okay.
that's,
I
you
can
know.
speak to all of that. I actually
So
plan to
why-
speak to all of
why-
that.
Okay, well, Diane, what
Do
I'm
you
trying to
need
say to you
This
is,
whole building for 390 kids? I mean, this building fits 700 and some kids, right? Peter, what was the number? So why are we taking 390 kids for 700 and some odd space?
Mary, if I can respond to that, I think you're looking at capacity. I would not like to see this building with 700 kids. I worked here as a social worker, and we were at 550, a little higher than that, and it was pretty crowded considering the number of services that we do need to be able to provide. So I think we have to be careful about looking at the potential occupancies when they developed those occupancies a long time ago before the educational process has moved. It's changed, it's evolved. What we're expected to provide for students is very different than it was when they developed those
All right.
occupancy rates.
With your saying that, and then you're talking, your next part of your proposal is to move fifth grade back. I'm just saying, what's the capacity at Clinton gonna be? It's up there now. It's at, 70-some% now?
Yeah.
Peter, do you have, I didn't bring the numbers. I'm
I
sure.
don't know,
But
I'd say
yeah.
around 500.
Yeah, so you're gonna push that close
So-
to it, and we know West Middle's close to it, so I'm just saying, the Slice Group came up with just a platform of ideas, and I think it would be great to put this committee together that Jan has asked us to do, to look at a different configuration, and then have a plan that this is what's gonna happen year one, year two, whatever. I just think that parents then could buy into it. And I did ask, and you know I have asked, I strongly believe that the parents should have had a right to be able to ask questions, understand, be part of it, even to vent. And like I said, I was part of both the other closures, and I learned from East. And I know we put the 21st Century Committee together, and I know we didn't take all their exact proposals, but we did take their information and did the best at the time. With considering that the board got over 100 plus letters, emails, phone calls from parents, students, and everything about, different configurations of our 21st century. We made the best decision. I personally believe, and this is my personal thing, we're putting salt in the wound. We closed the school 5 years ago, and we pushed this neighborhood out. And now we're reopening that, and that neighborhood is still pushed out.
Mary, I wouldn't want to cast any judgment on what happened 5 years ago
I
because
know,
those were
but-
different circumstances, all right? And I think different times. And I think that there's been a capacity issue at Winchester for quite a while. As long as I've been in this role, there's been a capacity issue at Winchester.
I know, but we're gonna have it in all the buildings, so why can't we put a plan out?
I believe this is, honestly, Mayor, I respect you enough and the group enough just to be honest and say that I do believe. And obviously, there's more to this, and you alluded to it a second ago in terms of some other
I'm sorry to
steps.
bring that part up, but
Yeah.
those were the phone calls I was receiving.
Sure.
there's more to it, and that's where I make the argument that we might be deciding that Winchester just needs to close overall, needs to be gone. Like, why, we're gonna spend all the money to move administration out of here, move them in here, get the other building prepared for what it needs to be prepared for, and then it literally could be a decision next week that we decide we close an elementary school. Peter, we have an option of
Well,
closing an
yeah,
elementary
I-
school?
No, I don't think you do.
We don't.
No.
With the committee that we were on, we're not looking at, we couldn't eliminate Winchester permanently.
Well, there are other uses. I think
You're
you
really
want.
talking about slicing up
Just
390
redistricting.
kids and trying to figure out, and
Yeah.
that, we never talked about. We
We
never
talked about it.
rearranged
We
it.
never looked at it. It's just,
Well, no, but I mean, that to me is a difficult proproposition
Okay.
to take.
okay, then I
Just-
misunderstood. I thought we could close another building if we wanted to close another building, if for save money purposes. No, I was wrong on that?
Not right now.
Okay,
No,
then I
Not from
apologize.
Not now.
No.
Okay.
You're right, a couple years out could possibly.
Oh, I'm sorry, a couple years out.
Yeah, but
Okay, so
I don't
2
even,
years out.
we didn't even
this-
we didn't even look that
We
far
haven't had the
out.
time. Have we had the time?
Well, you don't have the data.
Right, we don't have the data.
It's not, I mean, you have to get,
So what I'm asking is there a chance in 2 years that a building could be closed?
no, in 2 years.
There's no chance. 3 years?
No.
5?
Well,
Well, we don't
All right,
know.
well,
See,
That's my
that's
concern.
At our
that's
That's my
hard
concern.
to do, and
It's a number.
to me, this building is in a unique part of town. there's no other elementary building in this area. Whereas you have Allendale and West Elementary that are right next to each other. So if you're going to close a building, maybe you'd close one of those. I don't know. I'm just throwing that
This building
out.
was decided to be
So-
the best to close out of structure and everything 5 years ago. I would
We don't
think
know
that
why that decision was made.
I know
Yeah.
why the decision was made.
Okay. All right, so there's a resolution for, under new business, for the Winchester Elementary School and reassignment of some of the fifth grade students. Can I have a motion?
Diane, can I just explain the fifth
we're
grade
gonna
part of
do
it?
the fifth
I just,
grade.
if you don't mind, I just would just give a little bit more insight into this, just so folks can understand. So, thank you very much, Mrs. Brady, I appreciate it. So, as far as the fifth grade is concerned, that's another issue, honestly. In the fifth grade, in the middle school configuration was changed back in 2013. And I think that there was some hope that, eventually West Middle School was going to be able to take on the fifth grade just like East Middle School did. Population-wise, it didn't materialize in that way. And I will say that our elementary schools on the east side of town, I've been in contact with the building principals. They've looked at their space. They've evaluated their space. With moving some things around, they do feel as though they'd be able to accommodate the fifth grade. From a curricular standpoint, we've been there are some districts that have fifth grade in the middle schools, and they do it very well. Our particular program, I will tell you specifically, like in ELA, we do feel as though that there's some benefit to the kids remaining in the elementary school for fifth grade. Just from a developmental standpoint, I guess I'm putting on my social worker hat. That would be my preference anyway, just in terms of how they interact, just again, developmentally speaking, but also from an academic standpoint. We've been working for the past, however many years, the past like 7 years, to try to match up the programs and provide as consistent of a program for a fifth grade as possible. And it comes down to professional development, it comes down to how we assess students, even schedules. At one point in time, East Middle School, for their fifth grade, had a whole different schedule just for their fifth grade. And they really had to, it's been a little bit of a force. And I think our educators have done a phenomenal job up to this point, but we do feel, I've had some conversations, and I think that it would be appropriate for fifth grade to be in the elementary schools consistently across the district, so that you would have fifth grade is the cutoff point. Anytime you're transitioning to a new grade level, or new building, it's a critical transition point. And I think it's important that it's consistent across the district, and then that 6-8 configuration you would have in the middle school. As Diane was saying, this would be a kind of a phase one in terms of then assessing, what we have in terms of the district is concerned. So yes, to free up some space at East Middle School, we would want to evaluate how to use that. And to Ed's point, I wouldn't want to rush into that. I'd want to be able to take a hard look at what would be the most appropriate use of that space over there. There are options that we have. From that standpoint, again, you'd have a consistent structure, and that's something I've heard consistently from our educators and our families. As long as I've honestly been in the district, and we've had a 5-8 and 6-8 configuration, 2 different configurations across town. The question came up of where does the administration go, and our plan would be to move the administration over to West Elementary campus. We would be able to, at this point, we have BOCES is over here, and BOCES leases space from us at West Elementary. I've been in conversation with BOCES, and they're very excited by the opportunity that might be there. We still have to have some more discussion, but there's a possibility that they would be moving into the Winchester building and using it in its entirety, which I think would be a benefit to the district, because a lot of our students benefit from BOCES program. They provide a great deal of services and a wide array of services throughout the area. It's a great organization, so that they would be out of West Elementary. And you would have additional administrative support in our largest building. Now, I know one of the things that people would talk about at times about having the administration over at West Elementary was that things like superintendent hearings, which are disciplinary hearings for students that have really kind of make some big mistakes. We would not be holding those at West Elementary. I would be conducting those at another location, so we wouldn't be bringing students with, high school students potentially with disciplinary issues to there. We would also have protocols in place, as we did, honestly, before West Elementary, the administration left there, to escort people to their respective places if they had to go to an office. We don't have that much in and out or back and forth with people, aside from the FedEx guy, and they go to all the buildings, but we don't have a ton of foot traffic, so I really do feel as though this would be a welcome addition to West Elementary in terms of extra administrative support. It's our largest elementary building, but also, not for nothing, it'd be great to be around kids. For our staff at central office to be around kids and be reminded on a daily basis why they do what they do. It's not to say they don't know that, but we would love to be around children again, so we do feel that'd be important. And again, BOCES, I have been in contact with them, and they're very interested at the prospect of the Winchester building, so it wouldn't just be closed and sitting there. It would be used and providing a valuable service for our community. So, and a lot of our students, overall for BOCES, whether it's CTE programming next door or some of the programs that do take place here and at West Elementary, they could benefit from as well. So,
This is unfair to the community because it's so sudden. This is not right. We need to have a long-range plan. We need to work together and really come up with something that's best for the taxpayers and best for all of the kids in our district. You don't put a Band-Aid on something, especially in the middle of a pandemic, and it's an insult that the community was not involved in any of this. It's an insult to our taxpayers. It's an insult to our parents, Superintendent, and this is not the time. We need to set an overall committee, because it's the job of a board to always want to use the facilities in the best possible way. And we've done it in many different ways in the years gone by. We've made some mistakes. We've learned from those mistakes. You don't do something suddenly like this. It's an insult to our parents, it's an insult to our taxpayers and all of our stakeholders. I have heard from teachers, I have heard from parents today, I've heard from many people from all of these areas, and it's an insult. We did not include any of them in this age of transparency. And I propose that we get a committee together and study our facilities. That's the best thing to do. But right now, when kids are just coming back to school, oh, I'm so happy to be back with my teacher and in the room and all of that. They're so happy. And we're throwing this thing, oh, I'll be in a different school next year. And there's anxiety there. This is not the time, folks. I'm not saying there won't be changes in our buildings. But what I'm saying is it is not prudent and it's not wise. And this is something that obviously I'm very, very shocked and disgusted with.
Okay, and not all board members feel that way. I mean, there are
No,
some board
no, no,
members
no, we
that
take the vote.
want to start this process moving ahead.
Now?
So can I have a motion
Can I-
on 3B?
Can I ask a question before you do that?
Yeah.
Matt, it sounded like the staff had some participation from Winchester between the principal and the, has there been any communication between the fifth grade staff at East? Because I received phone calls from them, they found out when they read the thing. So I was just asking, was there consideration for their input at all about putting them back? Because they've been over there and they have a program that they assumed it was working. They
So-
were just wondering, and we're moving special ed kids out of Clinton to put the fifth graders back, correct?
Potentially, we would have to, yes.
Yes, all right. I'm just asking, was there any consideration of talking to the staff over there?
I can tell you over the years, honestly, Mary, that there's been
No, I'm not recently. That's all.
Yes, recently. I would say as recently as probably our last staff development day, we get consistent feedback that there's just not the same, that the programming for fifth grade is different on both sides of town. And I know that's been a frequent, I hear it from not just families, but I hear it from staff, concerns about the fifth grade programming not being consistent. We've worked very hard to try to make it consistent. So over the past few years, just like, in meeting, honestly, and talking with, challenges that, that some of the staff at Winchester face, no one's complaining. They're just saying, hey, these are the things we're up against. Everybody has struggles that they have to deal with in every one of their jobs and their roles. And those are some of the consistent struggles that we've heard. And we felt as though we had an opportunity to put a building in play here that's going to give us the ability to demonstrate a high degree of flexibility in terms of how we move forward with a district. No amount of redistricting can make class sizes bigger over at, the classroom sizes bigger over at Winchester.
Yeah, well, all I'm doing is I'm making the board noted that the staff at East Middle, the fifth grade staff did not know anything's happening till they read tonight, and they're very upset. So I'm just saying that. They didn't have any input, the staff didn't, at least the ones that called me. Okay? I just wanted you to know
Yeah,
that.
I know,
Okay,
before
so-
we do the vote, I implore to my fellow board members, wait till we see what the community's response is before making this decision. There's always the option to table it.
Okay, so can I have a motion to accept 3B?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Peter, can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? We've had a bunch of
We
discussion.
did already.
So, yeah, we've had a lot of discussion here, and this is as you can see, very emotional for some people. But let's just try to do what's best for the kids and the staff. Okay, so all in favor?
Diane, before you do that, I am going to let you all know I am not in favor of this due to the fact that I think the community should have had some input, at least to vent their concerns. So I'm letting you know ahead of time, I'm a no,
Okay.
because of that. On
Do we-
both sides of town.
Do we want to take a roll call or just, how do we, can we do a roll call? Mr. Siebert?
Yes.
Mr. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Pescia?
Yes.
Mr. Bedient?
No,
Mrs. Bussey?
No.
Mrs. Delbo?
No.
And I vote yes. So carried 4-0. Okay? All right.
Can I
that's-
ask another question then? Can we make a motion that a committee is formed, that the Board of Education will form a committee to look at future educational opportunities and facility? And I think I'm making the motion. I know Jan did, but I'll second her motion if that's. if you
Yes,
want.
yeah. And I think with the slice group that met, that was going to be the next extension, is that you were going to start getting more data, and that a committee was going to be formed with a lot of stakeholders to make those decisions as to what the best way, do we want to reconfigure some of the grades, what do we want to do with our building, and try to do a plan that's going to be a long-range plan and not a Band-Aid or not, something small, just to try to redo some of the things that, that need to be corrected in our
But I'm
district.
making a motion. so
Okay.
It's a motion.
Okay, so you want to,
To form.
Say
the
what
slice
exactly?
The slice group will form a committee with stakeholders from the community, education, and the board, and administrators. And we will look at all options for the educational opportunities for our students and the configurations of our buildings.
okay. All right, can I have a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Kwiatkowski, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Carried 7-0. Okay, all right, I think that's it for tonight, and hope everybody has, tomorrow is, I think, all virtual, or West Senior has classes tomorrow, but hope everybody has a good educational day, and that everybody stays safe. Okay, have a good night. Mary, and can I, Peter, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I oppose.
I oppose.
You don't want to,
I oppose every meeting when you want to adjourn, Diane.
Matt?
and what do you want to do if we don't adjourn?
Don't we have a majority?
Okay,
We'll
okay.
Go with the majority said.
All right, so I think it's, I don't know, 5-2 to adjourn, so we will adjourn, okay? Have a good night.